Yo, Sugi here at it again, and now we're gonna be jumping into the season 2 of Vinland Saga, which just wrapped its 24 episode season today on Netflix, and I'm gonna be dropping a lot of spoilers on this review, so you have been warned. Maybe come back later after you've seen the season. Now, where should we start? I wanna really say that I think really that this has been like top 3 anime of this decade, really, because I fundamentally find obviously the animation and all the action scenes really superb and high quality, but it has been fundamentally breath of fresh air because there isn't exactly, at least to my memory, not a single one anime that really focuses on Vikings and or Viking culture in general, or this time period specifically, unless it's like taking place in Japan, which is, most of these historical shows that they usually pop out from Japan. And obviously there has been many live action shows recently, like The Last Kingdom, Vikings, The Northmen, and then the Northmen movie that came out not too long ago. So yeah, there has been more of an interest of like exploring the Viking lore, and me as a Scandinavian, obviously I am kind of inherently bit drawn into it through these IPs, but not like exactly that I'm interested like reading the history or something, but it's kind of like a cool history to obviously have as a Scandinavian. Now there has been, I remember there was like an old video by Anime Snob, or not super old, maybe from 2 years ago, and he was like laying out this premise that this season, which focuses around the Farmland Saga, would be extremely boring. That the series started out like very action-packed, and that's what a lot of the first season was. A lot of action from start to finish, and then there was obviously some political schemes going around at the same time, but fundamentally, yes, very action-packed and nothing else, while Season 2 really has different subjects on mind, like really portraying the role between the master and the slave, and obviously the concepts of freedom, what is the meaning of life, what is the meaning of like also somebody else's life in a like a physical sense, like what is one life's worth. And these types of subjects are really explored throughout this season, and then towards the end, like the last 6 episodes, you're gonna be seeing a lot more action, not on the finale, but on those like maybe 5 to 6 second last episodes have a lot more action scenes going on. So it's not like pure people larping on and farming on this farmland. So that's not what the season is fully about. And I kind of do agree mildly with Snob's statement that, yeah, it's not exactly a boring season, but I would say that it has a bit of a pacing issue. Like, was all of that beginning really necessary? Like, there was a lot of these scenes and parts and dialogue and character development between the characters in the farm, which were maybe a bit more excessive. Like, we didn't need to flush that focus so much into the beginning, and maybe towards the end there could have been more stretched out fights and different things. And this sort of an epilogue that they had for Canute, for example, could have been more better. And I would have loved to see a bit more Thorkel and some other characters that we got to know in the first season. But fundamentally, yes, I do believe that it's a bit of a slow start, and if you're like really HD, you might have a bit of a problem sticking around until like the gears start kicking in. But I don't mind it. I'm not like this autistic zoomer, like I can wait through a couple of episodes. Obviously it's a weekly format, so some people may not like that, so it would have been a very different show to binge through if it would have been released in 2 batches by Netflix, which would have been their route. But kudos to Netflix, releasing it in a weekly format. That's like smart, keep people hooked in, and the hype doesn't die immediately. That's something that they maybe haven't still realized with these anime shows, that hype dies really fast if you're going to be having these massive breaks around the IP, especially if there's no like specials or movies coming between the seasons. Now, and I had to still say, like, the season 2 is still the same Vinland Saga at its core. It's about white niggas going hard. Like, it doesn't matter if they're farming, matter if they're fighting, they are still going hard, working hard, and that's what I kind of like about this. And there's some things I will be addressing a bit later on here about the farmers, but I just, kind of like the thematics of the season 2. I read a bit about of what exactly is going to be happening on the next season, and obviously this is based on real story, like a real chronicles, and there's going to be, I think the season 3, when they actually get into Vinland, is probably going to be derailing a lot more from the known history. Like they're going to, that's my assumption, that this is where it's going to be like going into very, very fictional aspects. And I don't know how the series is ending because it hasn't ended yet, like how it's going to be, because we don't actually know what happened to the Vikings once they arrived. I think there's some claims that they died and some claims that they were abandoned eventually. But when they say abandoned, that it didn't mean that during the 1500s the Vikings moved to Americas or they went back to Scandinavia. We don't know that. So that's very something that we don't historically have really records of. Now, in terms of the OST, which is kind of, I have to say, it's not like this super mega impressive one, which is like really makes me question my judgment about the earlier top 3 statement, because in my opinion, like, you want to be a 10 out of 10 show, you better have a fucking killer soundtrack. But the opening, once again, by Survive Set the Prophet, and this is funny about this band, because every other song that they have released, I have not liked. Mukan Joe, which was the first season's opening song, fucking banger track, and it's a lot more heavier track. A lot of them more are rock ballad style songs, and this has been more like higher amped from their regular stuff. It doesn't have screamo or like metal tones like the first opening had, but I still like it. I really enjoyed this one. So it's one of those tracks that, you know, I'll listen outside of the anime. That's always a good indicator. If I'm listening it outside of the anime, that means that I really enjoy it. Now let's kind of get into some of these issues with the season. I gave a lot of praise here already about animation quality great, and obviously criticized a bit of the pacing in the beginning, but there are some problems here. First of all, it's like this farmer stuff. Because when you think about farmer, you might think about, my name is Buffalo Bill, I'm from Alabama. You know, that's your, you know, farmer today in America maybe. But when you go into pre-industrial revolution farmers, and even some farmers today, here in Scandinavia, for example, these guys are fucking built. You working at a farm like, you know, howling haystacks and stuff like that, most farmers do have six-packs. Like, these are really built-up guys. Like, really, you know, we are talking about, like, masculine and strong men. And this idea, when in the last part of the season, you have these, the Joms Vikings, which are, like, the elite guard, and obviously they have been trained in shit. But this idea, like, they didn't actually tell the casualties, but it like showed like almost none of the Vikings actually died. But the farmers, like, this idea that there's some weak fucking peasants who get like one shot by a fucking sword is absolutely ridiculous. These guys have a lot of strength. They have, you know, a lot of, well, raw power, and they just, you know, they probably have speed too because they work out like so much. And this idea that they would not be able to swing a sword, obviously they were like poorly armed, so that's like an argument to be made. But this idea that, you know, just because they're poorly armed, that they have pitchforks and some sword and some fucking wooden shield, that they wouldn't be able to kill out like an elite guard is like, to me, it's kind of absurd. It's not like, obviously I expected them to lose, but not this overwhelmingly. Like, we have to understand that farmers are fucking strong. Like, this is a real thing. Don't think about the farmers of today, but think about how much of like manual labor these guys did back in the day, pre-industrial revolution. Even in the 50s, 60s, 40s, like then, even then, like, farmers were really built out, and they were not fucking fat. Another problem that I had with this season was the idea. Obviously, in the first season also, Leif was searching for Thorfinn, but this was something that was being built up from the first season. Like, you would actually, and there's maybe many series that I've seen in the past and movies where you're really waiting for the two people to meet, or two people to basically and eventually fight each other. And this was one of the highlights for me, that Thorfinn actually meets Leif, and they do meet. But this scene of them meeting each other is actually cut. I don't know if it's manga. If it's not in manga, that's absolute travesty. But to me, that was like one of the most things that I was really expecting. The initial meeting of Leif meeting Thorfinn. Again, that was to me very remarkable and important aspect of this story, because he was kind of like one of the last people that he knew from his village, outside from his sister and his mother. So to me, this was played wrongly. Even if it was not in the manga, this is how it should have been done, that where they show actually them meeting out for the first time. Or not first time, but making the reunion. And then there was like, obviously there's I already mentioned that there's a lot about that dynamic between the master and the slave, and maybe this idea of like 6 fucking guards like able to control these massive slave fields is a bit ridiculous. Like, you would probably run away because you can't, like, it's not like they had fences or walls. They really didn't have much going on, and they just like the comparisons to slaves to soldiers, there's always been historically a certain type of a level, and it's not precisely said how many slaves they had to farm, but it was extremely easy to, or would have been very extremely easy to escape. And the new character that gets introduced here, Einar, which is going to be probably very major going on to the 3rd season, I mean, I would have kind of expected him to try to, escape. And Einar, by the way, is like it's good that they made him actually like masculine and strong, because as I said earlier, if you're going to be working on farm so much, you should be able to beat a lot of these guys. And he kind of gets to beat some people, but I think she should have been able to overpower a lot of people, and should have been turned out in a lot more stronger, like Kardar, for example, the other side character. And then you obviously have the whole Ironhide. I'm not actually even sure how this is supposed to be pronounced on Scandinavian language. Ironhide, something like that. But obviously in Japanese they kind of mispronounced that. But whatever, it's okay. And this character was, well, it's a female love interest for, well, many people. And he was not really a great character in my opinion. I think her arc was kind of maybe important for character development for Einar and, Thorfinn, but fundamentally, like, the way she died was kind of lame, and, well, kind of makes maybe sense, but to me this character was just kind of filler. I think it would have been maybe a bit better if we would have cut out all of that fucking drama with her and Gardar from the season, and it would have been, I mean, there was some action scenes there with Gardar, but was it really necessary that much? Like, was it really that necessary? Like, this could have been, a bit more, I don't know. Another theme also, which slightly touched upon, was Christianity. And upon watching a bit of the Vikings series, I think this was around the time that the Vikings were starting to become more interested in Christianity. I still have no idea where is this farmland exactly. I'm assuming it's in Denmark, but I could be wrong. But fundamentally, like, I feel that, or it could have been actually in UK or Ireland, who knows. They don't show the map at any point, which is actually a bit annoying, or they do show it, but a very, very vague sense. Like, I know where the fucking Iceland is, okay, I know the geography, but, like, they didn't really tell anything about, like, there's the farmland, Ketil's farm, but where is it? Where is the Ketil's farm? I assume it's in Denmark, okay? But, yes, it was a really good season. Maybe not as good as the first season, because Ashkelad is probably a lot of people's favorite character, at least for me. And him getting killed off so early was a bit of a travesty, not gonna lie. But that's kind of like good things about these types of shows, is that no character is unkillable, so to speak. So you can write them always off, and that's the kind of like a very powerful story where the stakes are high, anybody can die. But I mean, I think it was a great season. We're probably going to have to wait for quite some time for the next season to come out. I don't know many chapters are we in terms of the manga. But I don't really have that much else to add about this season and my thoughts around it. Very solid season, enjoyed it. Could have been a bit faster in terms of its pacing. And obviously there's the whole thing about the farmers, which I kind of didn't necessarily agree with in a historical context, but I'm sure like a lot of these mangaka do a lot of extensive research about the event, so maybe I'm wrong. But thanks for watching. I will be seeing you in the next video when it comes out. Cheers.